If you want to be an expert in anything, you need to figure out exactly what your unique ability is. What's the one thing that you absolutely are the best at that you should put all of your time, effort, energy into growing? Well, in today's episode, we talk about that and more with Cris Chico, who is one of the world's most well-known experts in virtual wholesaling, going out and finding deals direct to seller all over the country. And in today's episode, we're going to dive into some of those strategies that have been working well for him and how he ended up getting to this point of realizing picking one specific thing, marketing, and working with other experts to pull all the pieces together and how you can do the same. It's an inspiring episode and you're not going to want to miss it. Let's get to it. All right, guys, welcome back to the Investor Mindset Podcast. I am extremely excited today. I have Cris Chico in the studio. How are you doing today, Cris?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here with you. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and as you guys know, Cris Chico is one of the early real estate coaches, and he is focused on virtual wholesaling, virtual real estate investing, where you can do deals literally from your laptop, from anywhere, from start to finish. And he streamlined that method into a fully integrated system he calls the virtual wholesaling method. And he's shifted and modified that over the years. And we might get into some of the specifics here, but we're really going to be diving into, what does a veteran like Cris think is happening, right now in the market? What are some of the things that he's applying himself, and how does he think about these things? So we're going to dive in right now. You ready to go, Cris?
I am ready to go. Let's do it.
I love it. I love it. So if we start out by taking a look back at your life, what events or influences from your childhood shaped who you are today?
What influences? I think probably that's a good question. Which, by the way, you didn't give me these questions beforehand, so they're kind of on the fly. I think probably not having money was one of the big influences because I grew up in Puerto Rico, and when I left Puerto Rico, I left when I was 3 years old, in third grade. And when I left Puerto Rico, we had just gotten a running water inside the house. So whenever we took a shower as a child, I remember we had to go out to another outside structure in order to take a shower. I remember getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and we had to go to the outhouse and kind of wait for the cockroaches to scurry along. And so for me, when I came to Connecticut and then eventually made my way to South Florida, I never really had any money. So for me, childhood was painful from that perspective because I felt like I was missing out on certain things. And then also, I saw that, hey, my parents were struggling, and certain things, finances would have made them better. So for me, a pain point was the money, was the lack of money and the desire to go get some.
Yeah, and would you ever let yourself go and live in that environment again, or let your kids, your family, live there again, Cris?
No, I mean, I always think about that as I think about my daughters. I have two daughters, and I think about the life that they live and certain things that they are used to. And they don't know the reality of what happens if you don't have those things. But, I think about kids who don't have that. I think about kids who, go to bed at night hungry and who lack a lot of the things that we're grateful for. And so for me, that's one of the things I always think about is that I'm doing this not only for me, but I'm doing it really most importantly for my family and the people around me, because I want them not to have the same, not to suffer through the same thing I did when it comes to money.
Well, it ends up creating a heck of a motivation, right? When you live in an environment like that, you can even look at things from two directions. You can either say, because I grew up like this, I can't have anything better, or because I grew up like this, there's no choice for me but to go and build a better life. And it's clear that you definitely went with the latter and have created one heck of a life for you and your family.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is that that motivation for money, though, however, has the potential to, there's a particular model of achievement, right? There's two models of achievement. One model of achievement is that is the have, do, be model, right? Have, meaning that, hey, if I have all these things, then I'll end up, no, if I do all, sorry, I always get them mixed up. Do, have, be model. If I do all these things, then I'll have these things. And then finally, I'll be that person that I always wanted to be. So in other words, it goes, well, hey, if I make all this money, then I'll end up, if I do all these things, right? Grow the business, go out and do all these things, I'll finally have money. And when I finally have money, then I'll finally be that person I've always wanted to be. And for a long time, that was me. And then what ends up happening is that then that's where you hear the stories of all these Hollywood actors and these people that are really successful at the end, and at the end of the day, they're really miserable because they, it's like having that ladder up on the wrong wall versus the model of achievement of the be do have model, which is, if I become that person today, then I'll be able to do anything I want to do. And I'll finally have everything I want to have. But the being comes first. So to a certain extent, it was good. It was a good driver, but it's also one that could get you into trouble because then it's the opposite, I think, of what the right model of achievement should be.
Oh, I love that. That is a huge thing, you guys. I hope that you'll rewind that and listen to that again, because when you can come from a place of who you have to be in order to do the things and therefore to have the life and things that you want, it's a much better model. What was it that made that shift happen for you to realize that was a better model of living? Or what was that moment that you kind of realized, oh, wow, well, I've got a lot of things. I've been focused on the money, but now I need to shift that focus?
I mean, I think it's different for everybody. I think internally, it's always a feeling of, oh, I thought that this success was going to feel a little bit different. Right. Because then if you hinge your success on, hey, it could be anything simple from, hey, I want to have all success and I want to drive a fancy car and live in a nice house or whatever that end goal that you put in place. Then I think you just end up realizing it in the sense that it's not what you thought it was going to be. And or then there's that always shifting horizon. If you think about the analogy of the horizon, if the horizon is always in front of us, but never you can never reach it. It's always perpetually shifting, right? No matter how close you get to it. And I think that if you have the wrong model of achievement, then you just end up always chasing, always working, and never really having that sense of fulfillment. And I think, I don't know when I realized it. I don't think it's I can't remember when, but I think it was definitely through the use of mentors and people that I have as mentors in the past that made me realize that. And then, just started to shift the model.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's one of those things where I'll find myself falling back into that place of thinking, what do I have to do in order to, have the things that I want and start being the person? But when you can just break that up, when you can have that moment of checking yourself and bringing yourself back, that's really, really strong. So tell the listeners here a little bit about your background in real estate and what your primary focus is as an investor. When did you actually start doing real estate, Cris?
Well, I mean, I ended up starting real estate as an agent initially. I went to college. I dropped out of college. I went to work as a real estate agent. I was horrible as a real estate agent. I'm a horrible salesperson, even though you and I can have a really intelligent conversation and you think, oh my God, if Chico was trying to sell someone, he'd be great at it. I'm not, because I procrastinate and I will organize my CRM and my lead system all day long and never call anybody. So I'm not the right type of personality you need for sale. So I ended up going back to college, got a degree in accounting, and then went back to the workplace. And within 6 months, realized that it wasn't for me. And then went back into real estate again to give it one more shot. And then what ended up happening is that by luck, I had a friend of mine that was in charge of selling properties for the banks once they got them into foreclosure. And so he got me in as a real estate agent helping them. And that was great for me because, again, I tend to be more mechanical in nature, more systems oriented. And that was very much a systems oriented type of business versus the general public. And then eventually the guy that was buying most of my deals when I was an agent, he said, hey, why don't you come work for me and I'll teach you the ropes. So I went to work with him for a year. I did about 55 transactions in a year for him. I didn't make that much money. He made most of the money, but it gave me the experience of 55 deals. If you think about to do 55 deals, you have to look at how many deals you have to look at to do 55 deals. So I got a lot of experience condensed. And then what ended up happening is that then I saw that the banks were not getting as many foreclosures, because as the values rose, then that means that the banks were getting less and less inventory. And that's when I decided to go out and try and find private owners that were willing to sell their property at a discount. And that led me to I always think about pivotal moments. You always think about pivotal moments in your life. And one of the pivotal moments was me deciding to go with the investor that said, hey, why don't you come work for me? And another pivotal moment was when I decided when I just happened to come across a guy by the name of Dan Kennedy, who teaches direct response marketing. And I picked up a book, which I always highly recommend, called The Ultimate Sales Letter by Dan Kennedy. And that's the book that I use in order to learn direct response marketing. And that skill, I always think about, valuable skills that you can learn that will carry on throughout your lifetime. And that's one of those skills, the ability to, I'm not a great salesperson. Like, say, if you hire me to call people, I mean, you'd be like, Chico, get out of here. You're not calling anybody. You're just sitting around all day, like fiddling around. But I know how to sell like in print, and I know how to sell like in a different way. And that could be applied to anything. But, that's how I learned direct response marketing. And I was doing postcard marketing for the most part for many, many years. And then, realized that and started to think about the fact that everybody's online. When my mom said that she had a phone and she was on Facebook, I said, you know what? Maybe property owners are probably online. And then I studied Facebook and then pivoted to where now I only do online marketing. And I teach that to real estate investors and how to get online. And I think, I always say that the best advice I can give anybody is always, I think that learning the skill of online marketing is also an invaluable skill, because no matter what happens, no matter what platform you're on, it's like learning the language of real estate. The basics of real estate is how to do a contract. And no matter what strategy you use, that is a strategy that applies across the way from, whatever niche you're in. So I'm a big, from a mindset perspective, I'm always looking for what is that valuable skill that could serve as a foundation and a building block for other things that you might be involved with.
Yeah, I think that is, it's cool to see the progression, right? And for you guys out there who are listening, think to yourself, well, hey, someday I want to be like Cris, or someday I want to be like so-and-so. It doesn't all happen overnight. It builds, right? You jumped in with a mentor. You chose to not make a lot of money there, but you wanted to get that experience, and that experience ended up leading you to being one of the go-to people in this specific niche of virtual wholesaling, right? Virtual investing. So I think that it's amazing to see how that's come together. What markets are you focused on yourself, or are you putting 99% of your time into helping other people make sure that they can get their businesses, to exactly the place they need to be on the virtual front?
Yeah. So I do two things. Number one is that I don't have my own internal. What I do is I have specific partners that I work with, and I generate leads for them, and I take a percentage of the deal rather than me. It's a decision. Some people build out a real estate business where they have a team and they're managing the whole entire spectrum of the business. For me, it's not something that really juices me. And so for me, I'd rather generate the leads. I pass them on to other partners, and I get a percentage of those deals. And I stay inside of my wheelhouse, because I think that's very important for people to know is where are your strengths? What is it that you like to do? And then I also teach real estate investors really how to get started with online advertising, and specifically Facebook. Like I said, once you learn one platform, you learn them all. I think Facebook is the easiest platform to learn. And that's, one of my focuses is on teaching real estate investors how to get online. And for me, I get excited if I can take you from zero, never knowing anything about Facebook except what's on your phone, helping you put some ads together and getting your first deal. For me, that's exciting for me, because now I've opened up your world, because now you have a capability that can take you further.
Yeah, well, it's so important for us to figure out what is going to be our niche, right? And understanding what those strengths are, right? Because for somebody, they might say, hey, well, my niche is flipping, or my niche is single family, or my niche is, this specific market of Raleigh, North Carolina. But what you've done is you've actually gone a niche within a niche, and you've said, hey, I'm going to figure out how do I find leads for people who are doing, direct to seller marketing, and how do I be a part of their system? That way you can do just your best work. And how do you go about figuring out what that strength is? If somebody doesn't know, where should they start figuring out, hey, this is the stuff I really need to be doing, and this is stuff I don't? Because I think a lot of people are unconfident about that feeling of, well, where are my strengths?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the Colby Index. Colby Index, you could take that test. A few other ones do the same thing. I think the first thing is understanding how you work. So, I'm not a big fan of say, going with your passion. You go with, hopefully there's an intersection of passion and opportunity, but I think opportunity is better, number one. And then what you have to do is you have to figure out how you best work inside of that opportunity. So for me, I'm very mechanical. In a Kolbe test, I'm a high researcher, and high fact finder, which means is that I'm like a battleship. If you told me, hey, I got a great idea, I'm going to research the crap out of that idea, figure out all the nooks and crannies, and then I'm going to organize it. And then finally, I'm going to take action. And that's great for me. Sometimes, so you have to figure out how you work best. And so for me, I applied that to the real estate. And so for me, because of my nature, I became good at marketing. And I always say that, for me, that's the thing that I'm really great at is becoming, I became great at marketing. And I look at that as I don't like to say, my best advice is to be more methodical of figuring out how you like to work. And so those tests like the Kolbe Index, I'm trying to think about the other ones that are available, this profile, to try to get an understanding, okay, how do I like to work? How do I like to approach things? And then figure out then what is the best opportunity out there? And now how is it that I can best work inside of that opportunity? And who are the other ones that I need inside of that opportunity? So then that way I can fully take advantage of it. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes so much sense. So it's really kind of like using some of these tools like the DISC, like Kolbe, like many of the other personality profiles out there to understand what are some of those areas that you're naturally strong at. And then, looking at it and saying, hey, do I agree with this? Does this feel like this is in my sweet spot? And I think something that is pretty controversial is this whole idea of passion versus opportunity. But talk to me a little bit more about that. Obviously, what you're really saying, it sounds like, is that opportunity is more important than something you're passionate about, because if you're good at it, maybe you'll develop some of that passion, or,
Well, I think you could, every opportunity, for example, if you think about, I'll use me as an example. So I have done more deals through others than I have myself. So what that means is that even when I got started in real estate investing, within about 6 months, I realized that I don't want to talk to any more sellers or buyers. It's just not for me. And this was back in 2005-ish, when even back then there was no acquisitions managers and all that other stuff that we have right now in the industry. So I ended up going out and getting a bunch of friends of mine that were interested in making money. They were handling all the calls for the sellers. And then what I was doing is I was doing what I did best, which is I put the back end systems in place. I was doing the marketing. I had everything down running. And then they were handling all the leads and dealing with all that stuff. And so for me, I looked at it as, okay, this is a great opportunity. I know that I don't like to, if you don't want to give me seller leads. They will sit at my desk and they will rot away. And they will just, so I just figured out, okay, this is okay. This is how I work. And so how is it that I can get somebody else to help me with that? Initially, when that happened, though, it was by luck. It wasn't, because a lot of times what ends up happening is that you can end up beating up yourself because you say, well, gee, I should be a better salesperson. I should follow up with people. Look at you, Chico. You're such a dimwit. You should be, a better salesperson. And then at the end, it's a negative thing versus you understanding, oh, this is how I work. I'm perfectly okay with the fact that I'm horrible at follow up and horrible at sales, but that's just me. And you have to be willing to accept that. So I think that it's a combination of using those to kind of give you the right filter. Going back to your initial question is, I just focus on what's the opportunity and what's the way, how I like to work. How can I apply that into this opportunity? And then to get others to be able to help me with the other parts of it.
Just figuring out what that leverage is so that you can just focus on that sweet spot, and really get the job done. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because in our industry, like for example, I have no desire, and I know that I would be horrible at it, for me to say build a sales team and have like 5 or 6 guys that guys or gals that I'm managing, that they're making calls to sellers and everything else. That's not me. So for me, understanding that and not feeling bad about it, I'm perfectly okay with that, because that's not the business that I want to run. I want to run another type of business. And that's perfectly fine with me. And then somebody else who wants to do that, that's perfectly fine for them. So you have to figure out where your sweet spot lies inside of that opportunity.
I can definitely appreciate that. What do you think are some of the big misconceptions people have when they're thinking about maybe going into virtual wholesaling or virtual investing that they really need to be able to overcome?
I mean, I think regardless if it's virtual wholesaling or any other opportunity, I think it always begins with mindset, right? Because it's many times we do or don't do what we believe ourselves are capable of, right? And so then with virtual wholesaling specifically, many times it's I think that the combination of people put obstacles in front of them when they're either not even there at that point in time, or they're completely illegitimate. I'm a big fan of a concept called just-in-time learning. For example, if you and I are starting together and I was coaching you on becoming a real estate investor, and then you haven't done anything, and you ask me, hey, I want to know how to read a HUD statement. And I will tell you, there's no reason for you to learn how to read a HUD statement because we haven't even gotten to the first step. That's all the way at the end. So I'm a big fan of just-in-time learning. A lot of times people work on, they like just-in-case learning, absorbing a bunch of information. And so I'm a fan of just whatever's in front of you, your next step, you focus on. And then at the same time is the other part of it is just, a lot of it is just, it's mindset. And it's hard to troubleshoot mindset because I always say that it's always hard to be your own doctor, because I think that's where one of the things that perhaps has held me back over the last couple of years is because I tried to be my own doctor. You always need somebody from an outside perspective that'll say, Chico, I can't believe that you're such an idiot doing this. How could you even? And I'm like, well, I don't know. It sounds like a good idea, but you need an outside person. And so I think that the other part of it is, I think, outside counsel to be able to guide you and let you and push you to ignore all your limiting beliefs and all the gunk that's happening in your head, because you're too deep into the forest to realize any of that stuff.
Yeah, people get caught up on that, Chico. And I know that when I was getting started, I was really caught up on that front where I thought, hey, I can figure it all out on my own. All this information's available. There's a plethora of it out there. I don't need anybody else to show me the way or anybody to be able to call me on this. What do you think? What would you say to those people who say, hey, I can't afford to spend, $100 or $1,000 or $10,000 on coaching because, well, I just don't have the money, or I don't want to spend the money on that?
Well, there's a difference. You don't have it and you don't want to spend. You don't want to spend there's a confidence issue. And the confidence issue could be two things. Number one is you're not confident in the person that you're talking to about coaching. And that could be very, very well fixed by you potentially going out and talking with a few people and figuring that out. It could be that you're not confident about your own self, right? Because a lot of times, we might say, hey, you could have a lot of negative self-talk that says, oh, you know what, I'm not even going to get started because I know that whenever I get involved with anything like that, then I always end up not following through. And, so you have all this negative self-talk that happens. I think that, I pay a lot of money for coaches. If I told you I pay a significant amount of money, so, I think it's significant on a monthly basis for a coach. And that helps me. Like, I always say when you pay attention. And to me, the amount of, I come in to my coaching calls with my coach fully prepared. I listen to what he has to say. If he was doing it for free, I probably wouldn't listen. So I think that there's a certain amount of accountability that happens. And for everybody it's different, right? For me, I pay a certain amount of money. That may not be feasible for you, but maybe for you it's, hey, if you have to spend $500 a month for coaching, that would really stretch you. It's all relative. But I'm a big fan of having counsel, not just, and I'm a fan of many times I've had 3 coaches at the same time because I've had one for mindset, one for business, one for this. And so I'm more in the mindset of accelerating success. I'd rather, if you have a course for sale, I'd rather say, hey, can I pay you $2,000 and just have an hour? And then you just shortcut everything I need to know. And I don't have to spend, 2 hours, 10, 15 hours going through this course. So, but I think that's also a habit and a muscle that you build up. The muscle of investing and putting yourself in that situation, it gets, it just builds that muscle. So I would say a coaching could be, it doesn't have to be one-on-one. It could be that you buy somebody's information and now they're your coach. You could buy Tony Robbins' program. He's your coach. He's not coaching you directly, but you made that investment. You maybe stretch your finances, but now you're going to pay attention. So there's various degrees of it, but I would say that success, there's never one thing. And I think that that's the problem. Everybody's always looking for one thing. If I only had in real estate, if I only had this list, or if I only had this postcard, and I would say it's always a combination of things that come together. The exam, and also in the right recipe. So if you were to come to my house and I said, I'm going to cook you a steak dinner, and I went ahead and I had the steak and I had the seasonings and everything else, and I cooked it for you. I put it in the oven, took it out, and then I gave it to you to eat, and you'd be like, yeah, it's pretty good, Chico. I like it. But now if I had Gordon Ramsay come to my house and he cooked the steak for you, and he took the same exact ingredients, and he took the steak and the seasonings, and then you got it and you put it in your mouth and you're like, you fainted because it was so good, right? What makes the difference, right? It was the same ingredients. And so I think that that's what makes it difficult, is because it's never one thing. It's always a combination of things, but it's always a combination of all those things coming together in the right way, in the right recipe, that will create success. And if you try to do that on your own, then you eventually will get it, but you're going to go through a lot of pain, suffering, and a much longer period of time in order to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, if you ever end up getting there at all and not giving up along the way, because,
right,
it can happen, right? It's hard to stay in the pocket. And sometimes you get on a call. I get on a call with my coach. I had one right before this, and my whole mindset about the whole week. And I focus on mindset all the time. But this person was able to see things that I wasn't, and be able to break through. So I think that's really powerful. You talked a lot about success. Let us know, how would you define success? What is success to you?
Success for me is progress. That's how I measure success. Moving forward, I think just progress. I think that should be success for everybody. Because if you as long as I have a goal in mind, and as long as I'm moving forward toward that goal and I'm progressing, then to me that's success. And so that's my definition of success.
That's a great definition. And with that definition, do you feel successful?
Yes, I always feel successful because I'm making progress every day.
I like to hear that, Cris. I like to hear that. What are some of your Keystone habits, the things you do on a daily or weekly basis that have led to some of that success?
Keystone habits. They change. Habits are always changing. I can tell you what my habits are right now, especially during this time. Number one is, that's a tough question. I'm more methodical about things. So for me, let's think about Keystone habit is I look at my utilization of time, right? And so number one is I always plan the night before, look at my schedule and look at my things to do. And I figure out what are the three most important things. Number two, I'm a fan of the phrase, if it's not on your schedule, it doesn't exist. So if you tell me, hey, Chico, I'm committed to working out every day, and let's say, well, show me your schedule. When are you going to work out? And if there's nothing there, then I say, well, you don't have a plan to work out. You just have a hope and a dream to work out. And so I'm more methodical in the sense that I don't tend to be goal-oriented. I tend to be process-oriented, right? So in other words, so for me, the Keystone habit of trying to put everything in my calendar, trying to block everything out, every single minute of the day is blocked out, including dinner time, dinner with the family, etc. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of working out and staying physically fit, and having that be an important part of the process. I have a gym here at the house, and so my wife is here home with the kids. So every day lately at 3:00 in the afternoon, we work out. So I have that in my schedule. And I also am not a fan of and I did a video on this today, I'm not a fan of I'm going to get up at 4:00 in the morning, I'm going to do my meditation, and then I'm going to write in my journal, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And then 10 o'clock rolls around and you're exhausted from all the things you do. There's nothing wrong with that if you want to do that. I'm more of look, you figure out the three things you got to get done, figure out the most important thing, get up in the morning, have your cup of coffee. If you don't drink coffee, then you're an alien. I don't know who you are, but I drink my coffee, drink 2 cups of coffee, and then I get right to work. And then I work out in the afternoon, kind of like once, but I'm in I'm going to get to work. So for me, I'm highly disciplined, highly process oriented, and process driven. And you got to figure out what works best for you. So I'm more regimented. The example I could give you is I've been trying to work out forever. Recently, I kind of fell off the wagon, and I would go to the gym, and I couldn't, let me do this, and I'll do this. And then recently, last couple of months, I've been better at it, only because now I have a specific plan. Like, I'm going to work out these days. This is what I'm going to do. So to me, I think that even though you may not be as anal retentive as me, I think that everybody would benefit from some certain level of discipline and a regimented schedule that lays out specifically what you're looking to get accomplished and when you're going to get accomplished it. Because again, if it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, that discipline equals freedom is so true. And it's like if you don't have it scheduled and you don't honor the schedule, most of the time the stuff doesn't happen. If you're not able to track what you're doing and doing it with some kind of purpose and process, then it's kind of like, well, what's the point of even thinking about doing it if you're not going to commit to yourself to actually make it happen?
I agree. And then also the last thing I was going to mention is building your commitment muscle. Meaning that I think for most people, they're weak at making commitments to themselves and keeping them. So if you think about it, if you make a commitment to yourself and then you're in the habit of not keeping your commitments, then you're unwilling to make bigger commitments. So in other words, if I know that when I make a commitment to myself or somebody else that I'm going to follow it, come hell or high, it doesn't matter what happens, then little by little, I'm building up that commitment muscle where then I'm going to make bigger and bigger commitments in terms of my goals and aspirations and everything else. And so that's the other thing, is always constantly working on keeping your own internal commitments, which then help you make bigger commitments to yourself and to others and with regards to your goals.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, we've made it to the growth rapid fire round where the questions are quick, but the answers don't need to be. Tell us, Cris, what's a book that's impacted your life the most or one you're excited about right now?
I'm excited about Straight Line Leadership by a guy whose name I cannot pronounce. Really great book. He studied landmark education, and the book is a derivative of that, but it's a really great book. I'm really liking the book, going through it right now, and highly recommend it for anyone.
Inspiration. What impacts have mentors made on your life, and how do you recommend others go and find mentors?
Impact that mentors have had in my life is just allowing me to think differently than the way I'm perceiving things. I think it's a perception issue many times, right? So a mentor helps you see your problem in a different way, which then removes the obstacles that perhaps may be standing in your way. What was the second part of that question? And
how do you look at going out and finding great mentors?
I'm always how do I find my mentors? I'm just open. I'm always looking. It's almost like as if you had a company, I tell you, like when you have a company, they say, when is the best time to hire? There's never a best time to hire, but you're always looking for talent. So that's how I look at it, is I'm always looking for mentors. Like I'm walking around with my wallet in my hand, looking for another one, right? Because I want that, because I know that it's a shortcut to success. So I'm always looking.
I like that. Me too. Yes. So
yes,
you got to keep your eyes open for those folks. And finally, finishing on this purpose, what drives you to live your best life every day?
What drives me to live my best life every day? I just think it's progress. To me, it's what drives me is I'm a naturally curious person. And so I'm always ingesting information and ideas. Reid Hoffman, who created Priceline, he has a great concept, and he talks about idea sponging, which is idea sponging is how he came up with Priceline, because he looked at the produce industry and he looked at expiring bananas. And after the banana was rotten, then you couldn't sell it. And he said, well, gee, that's the same thing that happens with an airplane. When the door closes, then the seat is no longer available. That means it expired. So you have to apply the same principles for bananas into the airline industry. And so that's one of the things that I think have helped me, because I know a lot about a lot of things. And a lot of times you bring in all those disciplines. So for me, I get excited by learning new things and figuring out new things, and then making progress on those things. That's really what my joy is.
Progress, such a beautiful thing to finish on. Thank you so much for joining us, Cris. Where can people find out more about you or get in touch?
They can Google me, and Google will tell you where I'm at. You'll find my YouTube channel. You can go to virtualwholesaling.com. You can go to virtualwholesaling.com, but just Google my name, and you can get to my YouTube channel, and Google will let you know exactly where I am.
Great. And we'll include all of that in the show notes as well. So thank you so much, Cris. Definitely appreciate this. And a reminder, you guys, I'll leave you the same way I always leave you. Live a life worth inspiring others, and you can do so today by applying some of the strategies that Cris and I talked about right here in your life and moving forward in the right direction.
Perfect. Thank you.
I've got some really exciting news. Our operating partners on the commercial multifamily space have agreed to invite new investors into some of our future deals. We are proud to bring these institutional style opportunities to investors within our community. In order to have access to these investments, you have to sign up at theinvestormindset.com/invest. And we have thousands of people who listen to the podcast, and we typically only allow 50 people to invest in each deal. So make sure you head over there right now, because once we send out the email announcing our next deal, it'll likely be sold out and oversubscribed. So get started at theinvestormindset.com/invest, and I look forward to seeing you on the inside. Thank you for listening to the Investor Mindset Podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Head over to theinvestormindset.com to join the Insider Club, where we share tools and strategies from the top investors and entrepreneurs on how to take it to the next level.